Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Commission Breath. Brandon Love here with Tom Moffat. And we've had a lot of you reach out to us asking questions about our team model, whether it's the right fit for you. And today we're going to do a deep dive into some of the pros and cons of starting a mortgage team, as well as share a few models that we think could work for you. Stick around to the very end because we have a reverse interview with Jason Henneberry where he interviews us about our background and experience merging our business, as well as a little bit about what's going on with Tango Ontario.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for this episode specifically, we'll do more of a deep dive on merging your business with another partner, not necessarily like adding agents underneath. Of course, you
Yeah,
can do that as well, but we did it in two different steps. Our first step was merging businesses. And I think for this episode, we'll keep it nice and granular and focus on that point. And then in the future, I'm just spitballing here. Maybe we could do a second episode going over adding agents under the team.
for sure. If you guys are interested on that, we can definitely go into it. There's a lot of pros and cons to that too, because a lot of it sounds like great opportunities, but there's some fool's gold in there. So we can shine a light on some nuances with building teams. But today, we're just going to talk about merging your business. You're a solo operator. Today, you're thinking about adding a partner. What does it look like? What should it look like? What are some landmines to watch out for? So we're going to get into that.
Speaking of shining some light, your lighting is dialed in today, buddy. It's
Thanks, brother.
looking good. Okay, cool. So let's start off with, I guess, the pros to merging.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So the big one for us was it was a very much a 1 plus 1 equals 3 scenario where we had complementary skills. So it strengthened our business as a whole. Tom is very much dialed in on systems and like operations side of things, and I'm more kind of running gun, always trying to get sales sort of thing. So sometimes I would fill my pipeline, but things would get lost or fall through cracks. And then Tom has built all the systems and processes to catch those falling pieces. So it's built both of our businesses up that way for sure.
Yeah, and it's nice to work on a specific task and okay, like here's our number one priority in our business right now. We can divide that and get it done in half the amount of time because there's two of us. And it's nice that way because if you just pick out the more urgent things in your business and you need to tackle it right away, it's going to get done faster, which is probably been one of the biggest takeaways for me since merging is just the amount of things we've been able to accomplish. And it benefits us as a whole as a business, not just yourself if you're on your own.
100%. So this is a big pro if you pick the right partner. We're going to do a separate cons list, but I just want to invert this one right away because if you pick the wrong partner, this can go dramatically wrong for you. And we've heard a lot of horror stories of people who pick bad partners. So just be really picky about who you pick.
Yeah. I guess we should have started this episode by stating that like merging your business with someone else is a big deal. It's not just something that you go out on a limb and do right away. It's something you should think about for a while. I don't know what the timeline is there, but until you feel right, you've crossed all your T's, dotted your I's, and you've looked at the pros and cons. And we hope this episode can help you get there. With that being said, another pro to that is the support that you and I have together on a daily basis. So, for example, like we mentioned this in the last episode, I was going off the tracks thinking maybe I'll add on another couple of realtor partners to replace the void that I have, like a big realtor partner retiring. And you were quick to say, no, just keep going with the financial advisors. It's going well. You have your system dialed in there. Why deviate and go back to trying to warm up your foresight for realtors, which you haven't done in a while? So, that support I had from you there has definitely saved me some time from going the opposite direction and having to switch different tasks and build up that momentum again.
For sure. I think the accountability piece is huge. And we've noticed this a lot where it's hard to see like glaringly obvious things about yourself, but someone else can point it out to you very clearly. I don't know why life is like that. But in this partnership, like Tom, some days will be like, hey, you're viewing this through this lens, like just tweak it. And same with vice versa, where it stops us from making a lot of like silly mistakes that would set us back a couple weeks, so a couple months, and it allows us to just keep progressing at that rapid speed. I don't think for us, anyways, it wasn't like a day one that we were able to do that. We've kind of grown to recognize when it's a shiny object for someone or this someone's pattern of thinking is this way. We've grown kind of in our relationship together to see these things. So it's not something you have day one, but it is something that eventually comes as a huge upside of having this partnership.
Yeah, it only took us a year to figure that out after Leadvine.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. 100%. So that support that keeps you on track is a big thing. And like we didn't have this on our list today, but I'm just going to add an extra bonus one on the pros. It's a lot more fun working with a partner, and especially when they're your friend as well, than working on your own. Can be a lonely business, just like rocking files in your basement or whatever. So having that partnership element does make it a lot more fun.
100%, and I can't believe we missed this point, Brandon, but I'm gonna add another one to the pros list is being able to hire earlier. And the reason I say that is because now you're hiring and you're not hiring someone on your own pay, you're hiring based off of two people's pay. So for example, if you wanted to hire an underwriter, but you're not really at that volume yet, if you merged with another partner, then you can potentially hire that underwriter faster because there's more files for that underwriter to work on, and you're paying half the salary or half the whatever the compensation is for that person. It's cut in half at that point. So you can scale faster from a team perspective when you're hiring people underneath you.
Yeah, and that saving spreads across all avenues. So it spreads across like your CRM costs, your Loom video, your Canva subscription, all of these things. Now it's 50% of the payment because you're partnering with someone. And then, you go into different brokerage models, which we'll get into later. But like you can save a ton of money by doing structures like this, which just makes your overall business that much more profitable.
Yeah, I can't believe we missed that point. That's actually like probably one of the biggest points in pros. But not to make this all sunshine and rainbows, it's not. There's definitely going to be some cons to this. And that's why we stated at the beginning, like, don't take this lightly. It's a serious decision to make in your business. So we'll go through some of the cons. The first one, in my opinion, that we experienced first was the initial setup in merging our businesses and creating that new branding. That was definitely a time consuming piece that didn't necessarily add more commissions to our plate and more business. It was just kind of this necessary evil that we had to do because if you're merging, you have to merge all your systems together, your CRM, your spreadsheets, the way you conduct your client journey is going to be different from each other for the most part. So trying to make that unison was definitely a bit of a setup up front.
Yeah, it was a little clunky, and like doing what we've done now, if someone came to us and said, "Hey, we're going to merge. Can you walk us through sort of the steps?" I think if we were to build a new team today, we would not make a lot of these mistakes. And just communication with partners, people are like, "Hey, this new brand, what does it mean? Am I doing mortgages with you, or am I doing mortgages with Tom, or am I doing mortgages with both of you? Like, who's Diana? Who's this new team member?" Like all of these things that we had to just address the questions. It wasn't difficult. It just took time for people to wrap their heads around. They weren't used to some of the new systems. So it's just a little clunky, not so much client experience, but more like a partner experience level.
Yeah, we went through a couple rebranding situations. Like we were at one point North Shore Mortgages, and then as of recent, since developing Tango Ontario, we had to rebrand to just simply Tom and Brandon or Brandon and Tom, vice versa, because it's just easier from that perspective versus now you got North Shore, now you got Tango, now you got our personal names. It was confusing for people. So we're like, why don't we just brand it to ourselves and Tango Ontario is our brokerage? And that's the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next big con here is a bit of a joke, but it's true. You can't take any days off anymore without getting caught. I remember like when I was just running gun solo by myself, sometimes I'd be like, oh, there's no calls booked. I'm just going to time block my day and I can go to the beach and chill out, which was good, but like also not good for the business. Now that opportunity doesn't exist because Tom can see the calendar and like today is Friday. We're recording this. I'm up at the cottage. We've got like three back to back calls, recordings all scheduled in. If I was on my own, I probably would have blocked this day off.
I didn't know that, man. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot right now. First of all, I don't even have your calendar, so I can't see anything you're doing. We have the shared calendar for our meetings, but if you had client calls, like I can't see that. But I hear what you're saying. You second guess yourself, like shit. Like if I want to take the day off, like what's Brandon going to think right now?
Yeah.
But I like to think of that as kind of a pro too, because it's just going to force you to work a bit harder and it's that accountability piece. So, really, you can look at it both ways, either a pro or a con. If you just want to kind of be a lazy person and not work, then it's a huge con. But that's neither of us. And that's why we both decided to merge together because we know each other and we know how we operate. We're not lazy in any way. But that would be definitely something to consider before merging with someone who's like thinking about like the type of person they are. Have they been in the business for 20 years and they're just kind of coasting and just working off their past clients, or are they like hungry right now and they're at the same level as you?
Yeah, and that's kind of one of our final cons, and so this transitions nicely is finding someone who matches on input. And we've heard from a lot of people who, when we said we were going to merge our business, warned us against doing it. And we've heard people say, "How is this going well? Like this was my horror story." And every time it comes back to like one partner ends up doing a ton of work, the other person just takes that as an opportunity to coast. And it's like those class projects back in the day where the nerd carries it and everyone else just follows along. In your business, you want to have kind of the nerd of systems, the nerd of sales, and have those two nerds collaborating and working together. That's when you find success. But if you have that person who's not on the same level of effort as you, it very quickly gets to a point of feeling like animosity, or I don't know the right word for it, but like feeling of discomfort in the relationship.
Yeah, you're gonna feel like you have an anchor on your team, and that's half of your business. It's like, well, fuck, like I'm working so hard over here, but this other person's like dragging their feet. Like you don't want that feeling. And I think that goes to the startup, the initial phase of even thinking about this with this other person is, are they equal from a file and volume perspective? I think like as much as the vanity and metrics that is, like you would come into it resenting the other person if you were, say, a 10 mil producer and the other person's a 40 mil producer and you're splitting the commissions 50-50, like that obviously doesn't make sense. It's not going to work. So that would be another consideration up front, which really ties into our next point, number 3 here with the different models, or point 4, whatever we're at. We're going to talk about different model structures because just because Brandon and I are splitting everything 50-50 from a compensation perspective, we rebranded to one team, doesn't mean you have to go that route. Like when we're talking about merging businesses, it doesn't have to be to that extreme. It doesn't even have to technically be like an actual merging of business. You can just pick an actual partner that you work really well with and not merge your business at all. You can simply just shoot ideas off each other, build out the same client journey and work with each other to get things done quicker, but still operate your own business. I think that would be like version 1 if I had to put it on a scale. And we're maybe version 3 out of the 3 different structures.
Yeah, so like we're 50-50. If you were a 40 million with picking up someone who's 10 million but has like a huge hustle for underwriting, compliance, etc., you might set it to be like, "Hey, I'm 80%, you're 20%, whatever that is."
True.
So that's a model of just like splitting things can work. The branding team as a team as another model that I really like, and a lot of people are doing that within the Tango Ontario structure, is they have like their group and they all support one another. But when it comes time to their commissions, they get paid separately. And everyone's happy with that. They have kind of this feeling of community, but they also have that feeling of independence when it comes to their money and how they spend it.
Yeah, that's a good point, and you have to be with the right brokerage. Not a huge plug. Well, maybe it is a plug with Tango Ontario, but you have to go with the brokerage that can allocate the different distributions of the splits and comp that you're asking for, that you've agreed upon with your teammate. Like, not every setup is going to have the ability to do that. So it's definitely something you have to have a conversation with your current brokerage to make sure that you can set it up that way. And especially if you're not even at the same brokerage with this other person, then you might not have the ability to do that.
Yeah, if you're not at the same brokerage, I would say that as a filter, do not do it. Your compliance and everything will be a nightmare. The third one is just not doing any branding changes at all. You keep your commission separate. You're a team only, and your partnership is only like really in kind of like that blood brothers kind of scenarios. Like you're not identified as a team. There's nothing really changing. You just work together.
Yeah, that would be version 1. I think maybe we skipped over version 2. Version 2 would be you're gonna brand as a team, which we've had a team join us, by the way, and they're probably listening in on this conversation, so you know who you are. You've merged as a team, one brand, but you keep your commissions separate. I think that would be version 2.
Yeah. And then version three is just sharing equity.
Yeah, exactly.
We fucked up our order there, but we covered all of them.
I messed that up going to version 1 right away. It's all good.
There's a lot of different ways to get it done. And I think a big piece is just figuring out what works for you and long term what's sustainable. So I think one point we should touch on is really identifying the partner or partners and having certain filters on it. So get a feel for how someone works, get a feel for their input, what stage they're at in their journey. Are they at a coasting? Are they at hustling? And does that jive with where you're currently at? A big piece that's not often touched upon, but I think a lot of people always talk about like volume, work style, that kind of thing. But really, the thing that I see driving a lot of people is their mindset. If you have a team of complainers, you will become a complainer. So find people who are upbeat and optimistic, looking for solutions, not looking for problems. That's going to have a large impact on how you feel about your work.
Yeah, I would probably look there first, like in terms of personality and the right fit from a drive perspective. I would look at that before volumes. And then you discuss, okay, like what are you doing file wise, volume wise? What kind of clients are you working with? What's your niche? Do you have a niche? Those would be the questions I would ask. And definitely don't jump into version 3, which is what we did, the most hardcore out of all of them, where you're splitting everything 50-50, one brand. I wouldn't jump into that right away. I would probably test it out at version 1, just work together, work on the same task. Maybe it's a webinar that you're creating together and you're just going to present it separately, but one person does the slide deck, one person, does the Q&A, whatever the case is, split up tasks, work together. That's kind of like your testing phase. And then you can gradually work up to volume 3 if it's been a right fit thus far. And I think there's like point that we should touch on too that we actually never did, which is the divorce. If you guys end up going that route, there should be a conversation like, how do you go through the divorce? Like, who's getting what? Have you been keeping track of whose clients or whose? Like, we haven't really discussed that, to be honest. It's something we probably should have done early on, but it's definitely something you should talk about and possibly meeting with a lawyer as well.
Yeah, like really, Tom knows if he tries to leave, I'll just kill him. And
It's
just
on the
kidding.
podcast now, so it's proof.
No, I'm just kidding. We did talk about the early divorce. We did at the beginning, but then we were just like, fuck it, let's just go for it.
Yeah,
Who cares? If it gets that bad, we probably won't want to be doing mortgages anyways.
true. Yeah.
So, if you want to know more about kind of our journey and what we're doing with Tango, we recorded with Jason Henneberry early in the week and we did like a reverse interview where he interviews us. So, check that out for sure. We talk about some of the value adds, we talk about some different things of what brought us to the point of merging and just go deeper on all of this stuff. So, that's coming right up now.
All right, Tom, Brandon, thanks for joining me on this. This is kind of an informal, casual sort of chat, but I do appreciate you guys carving out some time to do this. For those of you that don't know Tom and Brandon, you've been living under a rock because they've got the Commission Breath podcast. They're our newest partners for Tango Financial in Ontario, and you guys are killing it. We're very, very excited to have partnered with you guys for Tango in Ontario. But why we're here today is because you're seeing some obvious gaps in the market. You've got some serious growth momentum already in the first 60 days of launching Tango. I think you guys have onboarded over 200 million at this point in annual production in 60 days. And so what caused us to come together for this conversation was the fact that that's pretty amazing, but it points to a gap in the market. So we were chatting the other day. I was in Toronto hanging out with you guys, and you were telling me all about where individual brokers and teams are underserviced out in the market. And it really started with your own story. And so we thought it would be a good idea just to come together and share some of that. So if it's okay with you guys, like your origin story is you were not always partners, correct? Like you each had your
Yeah,
own businesses, right?
that's exactly it. I think if we circle back, it was probably about a year and a half ago, right, Brandon, where we started thinking about partnering together from a mortgage book perspective.
Yeah, we were in Kelowna. We realized that we had very similar business models. And then for the next 6 months after that, we just started sharing everything, but copying each other's work. So we would both duplicate every single task. And then we were like, this is so stupid. Why don't we just merge our businesses? We're more or less the same size book. And it seemed like a 1+1 = 3 kind of partnership. So we just decided to go for it.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So you had complementary, you guys work very well together. You're very complementary just in the like your approach to things. Was that difficult to bring together your books?
A little bit. I think there's a little bit of like Tom's very systems, and I'm more like, hey, I'll just text a bunch of clients and roll that way. So there was certain things where we just had to like
He looks way more uptight than you.
we just had to jive our styles a bit. And there was like a lot of things that he brought to the table with those systems that like really have helped my business. And then some of the more like shooting a client a text sort of thing that's helped his client experience wise. So I think getting the first couple of files through and just kind of getting to know each other's style that way took some learning, but it wasn't bumpy by any stretch of the measure.
Yeah, it's always going to take some implementation. And I think like the struggles to get everything cleaned up and streamlined off the bat was complementary to each other's skills, because if I'm more of a systems guy and Brandon just likes to just go at it and attack it, it actually complements each other, because if I have the systems, he can implement it right away. And then I can learn from him from a sales perspective, which I have. I've implemented more texting game in my client journey, whereas I was always of the mindset it has to be over email, streamline everything, don't have client text go in, because then everything gets bumpy and lost with documents. It's more of a mindset thing. And working with Brandon, it's allowed me to work past that. And then for my systems that he's been able to just take, package, and ready to go for his, it's been complementary that way.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the message here is if you're a solo operator out there and you're thinking about finding a partner, make sure that you're finding someone that you work really well with, but that has a complementary skill set. Like that's where the 1 + 1 = 3 comes from. If you were the same person, you might have found friction. Like you're able to both operate in your own lane and you have a creative value. So that's really cool. So that evolved fast because when we met, you just said you're only going back like 18 months or 24 months, but we met around that same time. So almost as soon as you guys came together, you
Yeah.
started looking like, where do you grow your team? So tell me about that. Like, how did you go from being solo operators to now you're partnered to suddenly you want to build like a whole team and a brokerage around you?
Yeah, so the team part where we were, it was a bit of a gap. Really good spot for individual agents, rookies, that kind of thing. But everyone was on like a flat fee kind of model with you hit 100% comp. And we realized like our team was always going to hit that, but then like different file structures, they didn't want us to have different systems in place. It wasn't coherent for what we were looking to build. So then we reached out to you guys to do that. And we realized, okay, Tango is like the best spot for teams. All the systems are in place. It's literally a playbook we can just run with. So that gave us a lot of like room to just be creative within the framework that was already in place. And then the idea to grow a brokerage wise, you lit a spark in us, and then we just kind of ran with it. So
I
that
saw
one goes to
talent.
you.
I saw talent.
It was not part of the plan, but like once
Yeah.
you had that discussion with us, we're like, I don't know. This sounds pretty interesting. Let's do a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
That's an example of right place, right time. We were
Yeah.
all ready to have that conversation. So we had our model in the West in BC and Alberta, and we were looking to expand in Ontario. And then you guys showed up talking about your team, and you both bring such enthusiastic energy to everything. It was something we were looking for. So we're really happy to have, been able to form a partnership with you guys. Okay, so let's get back to some of the gaps. What are some of the reasons? So I know you're out there in the field. You have a huge pipeline of conversations coming. You have a lot of reach. You guys have put a lot of work into it, but those conversations are coming. I don't want to say easily, but they're plentiful. There's a lot of people that aren't happy with their current situation, a lot of teams that feel like their growth is hampered because of the environment they're in. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So what are the big ones? Like to go from basically a dead stop on starting a brokerage in August to today, which was just like 8 weeks later, to having 200 million already moved over. There's a whole whack of conversations. Like there's another 500 million that I know that you guys are talking to. That
Yeah.
kind of momentum isn't just from hard work alone. It's because there's an obvious need in the market. So can you share a little bit about that? And maybe that will kind of like uncover what it is that's driving that.
Yeah, I think a big portion is in the conversations we have, and like our early team members have spiraled a lot of this growth because they're coming on board and they're saying, okay, this is actually legit. And then they're introducing their friends. And that's kind of had that immediate snowball effect that way. But I think a big part of what I see people missing is they're promised the moon everywhere they go. And then they get there and it's like, okay, this is just not a great experience. Someone doesn't answer their calls. There's no community element. There's no passion in the business. It's just there to, try to turn out a commission when you can. Supports aren't there, sales training, none of the stuff that they're told they're going to get is actually in place. And then they come to us and we're very transparent. Like one of the first things we do on our calls, we tell people exactly what we're not. And we say, we're not the spot to give you an underwriting coach. We're not the spot to hold your hand on every single file. But if you want to double your book and you want to add sales and marketing, that's the kind of guys we are. And that's where we'll help you scale. You'll get the red carpet rolled out by all the lenders with volume bonuses, access, all that stuff. So you get treated like a rock star, but then you don't have to pay like an insane amount of money to access this. It's very cost effective for people. So they see all the offerings, and then they see kind of the splits, and then they see the monthly fee, and they're like, that's a lot I'm getting for a very low price. I'm like, yep, that's the model.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You hardly ever hear me talking about Tango. We don't really toot our own horns probably enough, to be honest, but you're not wrong. Like there's different groups out there that have different models, and there looks like some that are really cost effective and so on. But we have a sweet spot that we've been able to hone in on. Your 50 to $200 million team, 50, $150 million team that wants to grow. I don't think there's a model out there that even comes close to competing with ours. Not just in terms of all the offerings, and we can talk about like that, but like from a price point, it's actually unbeatable.
Yeah.
We don't like to call it discount. We're not. We try to add as much value in as we possibly can to help those teams grow. So it feels to me like maybe you guys are like that's been working for us in the West, but right away out of the gate, I feel like that's resonating in your market too.
Yeah, that for sure. Cause like we experienced it firsthand when we were looking for that home base for us as a team. We just couldn't find that anywhere else. And we felt Tango was the right fit there. Like you said, it's not a discount place to go and park your license. It's value. You get the tech, you get the training, you get the support with the pricing as well. And other than the teams, you also do have, say, the 10 mil plus solo broker who still wants all of those things, but doesn't necessarily want to build out a team. You still have all of those value adds that you need for your business.
Yeah, cool. What else are you seeing out there? What other gaps? We're talking positively about what we're offering, but what's causing people to even poke their head up in the first place?
I think restrictions from their previous brokerage. What I mean by that is some brokerages are either, hey, you're licensed with us, go do your thing. We're just not going to be around. And then you have the polar opposite where it's like, hey, if you join our brokerage, you have to fit into our model. And if not, then you're not going to be the right fit. And I think there's a happy medium there. From what we've seen so far, is a lot of people migrating towards us have been forced into running their business a certain way. And we are the opposite of that. We say, hey, you run your business your way. We support you with all of the tools we give you. We're not going to be restrictive in how you do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have all the infrastructure in place when it comes to payroll compliance to make sure that, like, from the eyes of FISRA and the great overlord, that way your business is totally legit and above table, but you can run it, the systems that you want, the sales, whatever you feel drives your business success, we'll just be there to support you in it. Hearing that for a lot of people, I didn't think it was going to be that much of a needle mover, but for a lot of people, they're like, really, you're just going to like let me kind of operate how I feel is best. I'm like, you are the business owner at the end of the day. We're just here to guide you and support you.
Yeah, we realized early on that if you try to force someone to do anything, whether it's which CRM you're going to use or what submission platform you're going to use,
Yeah.
the moment you take away choice, it doesn't land well for people. So we went the complete opposite direction. Way back when we formed Tango, we were heavily invested in our own technology platform, the same as everybody else out there. This is early days. Like we formed Tango in 2017, and we bought a bunch of brokerages and merged everybody together. And we finished that merging process in 2018. That was the very beginning of people investing in technology the way that we have come to understand it in the industry. And a lot of companies have made massive financial commitments. And so they have no choice but to stick with those. It's almost like, you set course, you set sail, and you've invested, you can't turn around. We realized that that was starting to cause friction. And there was a moment in time right around 2019, almost like just a couple of years into that. We had already done Lender Spotlight, a whole tech stack. We were going down that path. And we made a strategic decision to dial it back and to then be completely open source. And so we focused all our energy on choice and options, and to say like, look, you can come and you can build your team and you can pick any piece of technology you want. And so we invested our energy in making sure that behind the scenes we could run payroll and compliance and other things in a way that allowed people to choose whatever platform they wanted. Turns out that was a good bet,
Yeah.
because now people just have a sour taste in their mouth over being forced to do stuff. So I'm really glad to hear that, because it was a tough decision to make. It was like, do we do what everybody else is doing, or do we dial it back and go in a different direction? So I'm glad to hear that that's
That was the reason why I left my first brokerage. Was I was being forced into using their certain submission platform. And if I didn't and I wanted to submit files elsewhere, then I would have had to pay, I believe at the time it was $200 a file. This is going maybe 5 years back. probably more at this point. And I know they still do
Yeah.
this because we spoke to an agent last week about this. And to me, that's mind blowing. It's like, why should he be forced into using a certain submission platform when you're a business owner? Like, it shouldn't be that way. And it's crazy that we're still talking about that in 2024.
I can tell you that decision that was made is one of my favorite decisions in the industry, because I can point to probably 25% of our volume at Tango is a direct result of that decision.
Yeah.
It took a while for people to get their head around it, and but today we're probably sitting at around 4 billion in annual production. With the growth momentum that you guys have in Ontario and the market coming back, like, we'll probably do $5 billion worth of production under Tango in 2025, and hopefully more beyond that. So you can imagine what 25% means. Like, over $1 billion of annual production is on our books as a result of that one decision. I can point to the exact people that have come over because of that. So yeah, like, forcing people to do stuff does not work. And there's still a huge opportunity out there, that because like you said, there's still so many people that are being forced to do different things. There's all kinds of policies across all the different brands out there that just don't resonate for people. So you guys are hitting the sweet spot. It's good.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a big piece. And also another big piece we've noticed is like, obviously we're somewhat a virtual brokerage in that we don't have like a Tango Ontario head office where everyone meets, everyone's working remotely, but there's a huge community aspect that people are loving, with like the launch party coming up on the 16th. We have the Christmas party. We've got Tango in the Vines, which is like our Tango sponsored trip for everyone to go out west. Like, people love the idea of this stuff, and like it's getting them excited, and like little internal competitions and stuff like that are rolling off of it. I kind of like sticking around home base a little bit myself, so I didn't think that was gonna be a big thing, but people are like over the moon about it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Any final remarks? We promise to keep this short and sweet. And again, if you're a solo broker trying to build a team, or you're a team and you're trying to figure out how to grow, or, you know, things aren't sitting right in your current setup, we hope that we're just, shedding some light on the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. If you think the grass is greener, we're here to tell you it is. So,
Yeah.
what parting remarks do you guys have?
I'd say, going back to the original talking point of partnering up with someone, maybe merging businesses, there's different ways you can do it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go 50-50 and all your commissions. Like, there's a lot of pros to doing it. There's a lot of different structures you can take from it. So if you're interested in hearing what our experience has been partnering both of our businesses, then feel free to reach out to either of us. Probably Instagram is the best way. We'll put some links down below as well. Other than that, yeah, Brandon, you probably have a couple of last minute words too.
Totally agree. If you're curious, reach out. And if you want to run your scenario and say, what does it look like to join you guys? We'll run the numbers. A lot of times it's going to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, there's no hard feelings. And if you want to join us for a fun night and you're in the Burlington area, October 16th is the day.
Nice. The Ontario launch party. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We still have some room on that? Just a little bit?
A little bit of room.
About
Yeah.
25. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
To be
All right.
exact.
Look out. Tickets are going fast.
Yeah.
Should we stay open bar? Probably.
Open bar. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Guys, thanks so much. It's great being partnered with you. Thanks for doing the call. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.